Hello and welcome to this edition of Eye on Africa. Thank you very much for joining us here on France 24. I'm Haxi Myers-Belkin and these are the headlines. A Cameroonian military court sentences the head of the country's Anglophone separatist movement to life behind bars. Julius Sikuku Ayuk Tabe found guilty of charges including terrorism and secession, alongside 9 others. After months of unrest, the army and pro-democracy leaders in Sudan announced the creation of a joint ruling body, set to be headed up initially by an army general. We'll soon be crossing to Khartoum for the latest. And we take a look at a Cameroonian music sensation who, thanks to a recent high-profile collaboration with global superstar Beyoncé, looks set to secure a much wider following. We begin in Cameroon, where 10 separatist leaders have been handed life sentences after being found guilty of charges including terrorism. Among those jailed, Julius Sikuku Ayuk Tabe, a prominent activist in the English-speaking west of the country, where an Anglophone insurgency broke out in 2017. Tabe's supporters have repeatedly said that his release from jail would be a precondition for talks with central government. Our correspondent in the country, Indira Eteng, has the details.
The verdict of a life imprisonment was handed down to Sikuku Ayuk Tabe and 9 other co-accused leaders of the virtual state of Ambazonia in the early hours of Tuesday by the Yaoundé Military Tribunal. Now, it should be noted that the 10 men were arrested in Nigeria in January 2018 and brought back to Cameroon, where they were detained under lock and key for about 6 months before their trial began at the military court. Now, the hearing has been adjourned several times with the defendants protesting irregularities at the court. It should be noted that besides the life imprisonment, the accused will also have to pay to the state of Cameroon about 200 billion francs CFA as damages to the state. Now, this is coming at a time when the ongoing crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon is escalating, with fears that the new school year may not start normally. For 3 years, about 2,000 people have been killed so far in the separatist battle, and 500,000 others have been left displaced, and some have sought refuge in neighboring countries.
Nicolas Germain takes a closer look now at the life and activism of Julius Ayuk Tabe.
In 2017, France 24 had interviewed Julius Ayuk Tabe in Nigeria. He's one of the leaders of Anglophone Cameroon separatist movement. But now he's just been sentenced to life in jail along with 9 of his supporters for terrorism and secession. This is what he was saying 2 years ago.
We are going to separate. We have restored our independence. We are going to discuss the terms of that separation, and then we'll build a wonderful nation that I would invite you in the future years to come and be witnesses to what we are saying today.
The military court's decision surprised many analysts because Tabe was viewed as one of the more moderate separatists. This verdict could lead to a rise in tension in the already restive region. Recently, Tabe had said he was open to holding talks with the government. We reached out to several ministers, but they did not respond. The separatist lawyers made this announcement.
I will personally advise them to go on appeal, because it's a total nullity. All what the court did from start to finish is a total nullity. And if the Court of Appeal cannot quash this judgment, then we are not a state of law.
Since late 2017, armed separatist groups have attacked police stations and schools and carried out kidnappings. The army, meanwhile, has been accused by human rights NGOs of committing atrocities against civilians. According to the UN, these last 2 years, 1,800 people have been killed in this conflict, and 530,000 Cameroonians have had to flee their homes.
The Sudanese military and the country's pro-democracy leaders have announced the creation of a joint ruling body, a move which disbands the military council that's ruled Sudan since the departure of autocrat Omar al-Bashir back in April. The new 11-member Sovereign Council will govern the country over the next 3 years, after which elections will be held. The council will be led by Lieutenant General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan for the first 21 months. A civilian will then take his place for the remaining 18. Well, for more on this, we could across now to Khartoum to speak to freelance journalist Naba Mohideen. Naba, the announcement of the creation of this council was delayed a couple of times. It was initially meant to be announced on Sunday. Is there a sense of surprise in Khartoum that the makeup of this sovereign council is, it seems, about to be announced?
Yes, it's a surprise for protesters, and at the same time, it's a good surprise because protesters were so frustrated about the delay because it's already scheduled to be on the 18th, the next day of the signing of the agreement. So it took longer time. It's a surprise also because General Abdel Fattah Burhan will be the head of the Sovereign Council. So, yes, people are surprised, but at the same time, they feel optimistic because they think this is the first step towards forming the civilian government that they asked for 8 months.
Now, the council will, we've learnt, first be led by the military. Was that a shock, or was that what was expected by the majority of people in Khartoum?
It's a shock, but people think that they don't have a lot of options. At the same time, they are expecting it because they think that the military will never allow civilians to lead the transitional period, as they think that they made the change after ousting Omar al-Bashir. So people right now, they accepting this like they don't have anything to do. At the same time, naming Abdel Fattah al-Burhan to be the head of the Sovereign Council, it's really a big shock for people, but at the same time, it's expected. But the good thing is number 11 member in the Sovereign Council will be a civilian. That means that in the voting, there will be a majority for civilians in the Sovereign Council during the transitional period.
Naba Mohideen in Khartoum, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Desperate to flee often appalling detention conditions and aware of the dangers of trying to cross to Europe illegally, thousands of Nigerian migrants in Libya have voluntarily returned home with the help of the International Organization for Migration. But often their ordeal doesn't end once they're back, with victims of rape and the children they bear as a result routinely ostracised. Sophie Bouillon has the story.
Learning new skills in an adult education centre, Joy is trying to restore some normality to her life. She may be just 20 years old, but she has already been through a lifetime of trauma. She once dreamed of making it to Europe from Nigeria, a dream that was crushed in her passage through Libya, where she was held in a detention centre and raped by one of the guards. Joy was 17 when she gave birth.
Sometimes people think I'm a nanny. They don't believe I give birth to her. So I just have to tell them that I'm the mom. They will ask me, how come? So I don't want to tell them the story. When they ask me, where is the father? I can just say, the father is in Dubai or somewhere else like that.
Joy managed to escape and return to Nigeria voluntarily with the help of the International Organization for Migration. She is one of over 14,000 Nigerians who have returned home from Libya under the NGO's scheme since 2017. Around a third of those are women. And in some cases, they travel back home with children born of rape. Faith has a similar story, falling pregnant after being sold into sexual slavery by human traffickers in Libya.
So even when my stomach was up like this...
Even when I was heavily pregnant, he would still sleep with me. Because if I said no, he wouldn't take me to the hospital. He wouldn't do anything for me. So I just had to accept it.
The return home is far from smooth. In Nigeria, their children are often called the Arabo children and stigmatized for the circumstances of their birth. In this protection centre, these isolated young mothers are helped by social workers who provide material and psychological assistance.
When they come with children that is not wanted, especially children that are being brought back, being raped, the identity is not there. It's a lot of trauma for the mothers. We've had cases where the mothers are very aggressive to these children.
Joy and Faith may have managed to escape their captors in Libya, but the majority of migrants are too scared to return to their families with a new mouth to feed. The United Nations estimates that some 60,000 Nigerian migrants are still in Libya.
Let's go, baby.
Singer, songwriter and producer Salatiel is one of the biggest names in Cameroon's urban music scene. But a recent collaboration with US superstar Beyoncé on her Africa-influenced album The Gift could soon see his following expand well beyond the country's borders. Fraser Jackson has the story.
I'm not much of a talker, baby, oh, can I drink from your water?
With his blend of Franco-Anglo hip-hop, he has become one of the biggest names in Cameroon's music scene. But thanks to a new collaboration, rapper Salatiel's career might be going to new heights. Not only is his latest single featured on the soundtrack for the new Lion King movie, but his co-stars are none other than Pharrell Williams and Beyoncé.
It's Beyoncé, you know, singing on the same song with Beyoncé and Pharrell Williams. It means many more people are going to look onto Salatiel, the artist. Who is he, and how come he's on this album? Why is he on this album? I have been waiting for an opportunity to be able to show the world what I can really do.
Disney's remake of its 1994 classic is accompanied by a soundtrack of African-inspired tracks by star of the movie Beyoncé, and features a roster of hitmakers from across the continent. Artists from Nigeria, South Africa and Ghana are among those making an appearance. For Salatiel, the spotlight on African music is only the beginning.
It's the future. African music is going mainstream. We can actually feel free to do whatever we want to do, whatever we love to do. Baby, oh, I'm not much of a talker.
After his collaboration with the biggest star in music, Salatiel is hoping his next album, currently in progress, will be able to reach a truly international audience.
Oh, darling, if you leave, I'll go wherever you go.
Well, that's all we have time for right now. Thank you very much for watching. There's more world news coming up in just a few minutes' time here on France 24. Do stay tuned.
50 years after Neil Armstrong was the very first man to set foot on the moon.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Revisited takes you inside NASA.
We've actually been very busy for the last 50 years, learning how to live and work off the surface of the planet for a long time.
You will meet those who made the Apollo program possible.
I think we were too young to know we couldn't do it, so we did it.
And we will bring you here in the middle of the desert, where men and women are preparing the next step. It's The Moon Revisited, and it's on France 24.
Revisited on France 24 and France24.com.